Hi there. Did you ever get the history of love?
Mr. Gursky, you have asked me every week since I have known you. The book does not exist. I have your phone number. If it is ever published, I will call you.
Would you mind checking again? Maybe it's just come out.
Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Make It Mondays. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Olivia Antsis, and I'm the Executive Artistic Director of the Gershman Philadelphia Jewish Film Festival. You know, in all my years of directing a Jewish film festival, I can't tell you how many films I've seen that feature sacred Jewish texts, philosophical treatises, political manifestos, literary novels, journals, or diaries as key components of the story or essential clues to understanding a character's motivation or their inner life. There is no doubt about it, books rule, and that's why I'm so excited to tell you about today's episode. It's a special edition, and I'm appropriately calling it People of the Book. As a former book artist and current bookworm, I love that in the Jewish tradition, books are as ubiquitous as God, and God is seen as a writer. Don't believe me? The proof is in the Talmud, where it is written that on Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, God inscribes our name in one of 3 books: the Book of Life for the righteous, the Book of Death for the devilish, and for those of us in the muddy middle, well, we're kind of put on a to-be-determined list of sorts. But Hashem isn't the only reason that Jews have long embraced their identity as people of the book. In Adam Kirsch's The People and the Books, Kirsch not only offers an accessible introduction to the classics of Jewish literature, he illustrates how the central questions and themes of Jewish history and culture are reflected in its Jewish literary canon. Now, if you're a bibliophile or an avid reader of Jewish contemporary writers, it's pretty easy to see why this phrase is so beloved among Jews today. But if you're from the Middle Ages, when this phrase was first used, it was more than just an endearing marker of one's Jewish identity. Back then, it was a lifeline. You see, in order to escape persecution in medieval Europe, Jews had to flee to the Middle East and North Africa and live as second-class citizens under Islamic rule. According to the website My Jewish Learning, during this period, Jews were categorized by Islam as infidels. However, the people of the book, as Jews and Christians were then called, were believed to possess a prior revelation from God that was written down. This earned them the tolerated status of demis, which literally translates to protected people. Essentially, what this means is under Islamic Sharia law, as demis, Jews would have the right to life, property, and freedom of religion, in exchange for loyalty to the state and payment of a tax akin to the obligatory alms paid by Muslim subjects. I really enjoyed learning the origin of that phrase, and I hope you did too. Now, I know all of you are itching to get your hands dirty, but before I reveal what we'll be making today, I do need to share 2 important but very quick items of business with you. Many of you know that sunset tonight marks the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day, or what we call in Hebrew, Yom HaShoah. For those of you who are less familiar with this holiday, the Center for Humanistic Judaism dedicates their observance to the murdered 6 million, lighting candles in their memory and honoring the courage of those who suffered and resisted. Keeping Yom HaShoah in mind, I also drew inspiration for today's episode from a film that we screened in the 37th season of GPJFF. The name of this documentary is Who Will Write Our History, and it was directed by Roberta Grossman. If you missed it at our festival, I really encourage you to catch it on Hulu or Amazon Prime. This powerful film follows a group of Jewish intellectuals codenamed Oneg Shabbos. Their mission? To report the atrocities happening all over Poland to the outside world beyond the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto.
Hey Prince, you want to say something for the camera? Want to give us a meow? Meow.
I'm taking this overhead shot of my dining room table to reveal exactly what we'll be making today on Make It Mondays. If you guessed an artist book or a homemade book, you'd be exactly correct. Welcome back. Are you ready to make an artist book? I don't know about you, but I can't wait to get my hands dirty. Well, actually not too dirty, given the book structure I'll be teaching you in today's episode. Today you will be learning how to make a flutter book. As you can see, when the book is open, the pages sort of flutter out. I'm pretty sure that's why it has that name. But the way I see the flutter book is it's actually an accordion book with a spine. And I'll show you just what I mean by that. So here's the spine. It's made out of paper, a little bit of a heavier weight paper. And if we remove this spine, turn the book back around, we have an accordion style book. I love accordions. They're actually the perfect book for beginning bookmakers, and I'll tell you why. As you may have guessed, a book borrows its name from the musical instrument. You can see it, right? You have the button keyboard on the right-hand side for playing melody, another button keyboard on the left-hand side for playing bass and choral accompaniment, and the folded paper bellows connecting the two keyboards together. This book is perfect for beginning bookmakers because you can start out with a very simple accordion structure and get progressively more complex with your design as you become more comfortable with making books. And that's just what we'll be doing today. Let's go over our materials. So we'll be using some common items that you can find around your house, like an X-Acto knife, a pencil, a ruler. But as you can see, I have a small mat board as well as a larger mat board to work on. And this is just so I don't nick or cut or stab into my dining room table. So here we have a very, very long piece of fine art paper that has been cut down and folded into an accordion fold. I am going to show you later how to accomplish this by gluing smaller pieces of paper together but achieving the same effect. We also have two bookbinding boards. We have a bone folder and these decorative papers. And I will also show you some alternatives to the decorative papers as well as these boards. We're going to be using a common Amazon box that you get your items in the mail in, and we'll be cutting out some pictures from magazines to cover our book. The first thing that we're going to do is figure out which decorative papers we're going to use for the outside of our book and which decorative papers we're going to use for the inside of our book. Now with this particular book, I use the exact same paper for both the inside and the outside, so there's no difference. I did use a different paper that's a little bit more weighted for the spine. But with these beautiful blue decorative papers I have over here, I decided that I'm going to use 3 different patterns. I'm going to use these 2 sheets for the outside, these 2 sheets for the inside, and then this pattern for the spine. And I think that's going to look really nice. Okay, so now I'm going to take my bookbinder's board, as you can see. I'm going to have the side that's longer This is going to be parallel to our spine. I'm going to put that right up against the top edge of this paper. And with my pencil, I'm going to make a mark at the very bottom of the board on both sides. So now I have my two marks, and I just place my ruler on the left side of those marks. Try to get it as even as possible. And I take my X-Acto knife. What I want to do is place some weight with my fingers onto the ruler so that I don't accidentally cut myself. And then I place the X-Acto knife with the triangle with the point facing up against the right edge of the ruler, and I just lean it back and bring it across the paper. And it makes a very neat cut, especially if you have a sharp blade. Now, as you can see, it is cut to the very, let's see if I can hold it up for you. It's cut to the exact size of my binder's board. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap this binder's board around on both sides, like so. But I wanna do it so that it's an equal flap on each side. So I'm actually gonna measure 1 inch on both sides before I do that. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just measure 1 inch at the very top and bottom. Of my decorative paper. And now I know where I'm going to place my board, right up against those two marks. And I now can measure from the right side of that board one more 1 inch flap. Now I can take the board off and quickly run my ruler up against those marks and use my X-Acto knife pressed up against the ruler to cut off that flap. Now we're just going to place our board back up against those initial two marks I made on the left of the board. And we're going to use our bone folder at this point. And remember, you can use a letter opener, the side of it. You can use a piece of Teflon, something that's kind of like pointy, that will give you like a nice crisp crease. And what I do is I just run this bone folder on the piece of paper up against the board. And then I just put it right underneath the flap and very lightly tap and slide the paper again up against the board. And that, sort of solidifies that crease. And then I just take my finger, wrap it around the board like so. And I use the side of my bone folder to reinforce that crease. And I use the side up against the board as well. And then I just repeat this exact task on the other side. And there you have one of our covers, completely done. All right, so let's put that aside and do the same for our other board. Here we go. Here's our other board. We're going to do the exact same thing. When you are using any type of paper, in order to find out which way you're going to be folding the paper, whether you're going to be folding it on the vertical end or the horizontal end, what you need to do is you have to figure out where the grain is running. And how do you find out where the grain of paper is running? Well, you place the paper down on your surface and you sort of just kind of very lightly use your hand to fold it slightly over, and you feel out that resistance that it's giving you. And then you do it the exact same way the other way. Like if you did vertical first and then you do horizontal, you do the exact same motion. Now with this paper, it definitely seems that the vertical fold is giving me a lot less resistance, and that means that the grain is going vertically. which is great because that is how we folded that very first cover. So if the grain is going vertically, we're going to be folding the flaps over vertically this way. And it's going to give us less, it's going to be much more easy for us to work with the paper. And with certain papers, if you go against a grain, if you don't find the grain, you're actually going to get cracks in your paper when you fold it. So if you've ever folded a piece of paper and you saw there's like little, cracks starting to form in the fold, that's because you are folding that paper against a grain. So now you know how to find the grain of your paper. And voila. Now we have the inside done. So when we put the two together, what it looks like is here's our inside, here's our outside, inside. And now we're just going to take these flaps and we're going to put them in between the paper and the board, and we're going to lock up our covering that way. So you just take the points at either end and tuck them in. You don't want to make any folds, so you kind of just have to work at it until it fits in there snug. Now I don't reinforce my flaps until I have both sides in, because you don't know exactly where the paper is going to lay once you get the second flap in. Okay, that actually looks really cute. Right? Super cool. And you can see the sides. So now at this point, I can reinforce all the sides of my cover board. So now we can take our outside cover and we can do what we did last time, which is just insert those flaps right between the inside cover paper and the board. You just want to take your fingers and edge it in there. Sometimes it's a little bit resistant, but you know, you just got to keep going. All right, and then you flip it over, and once it's flush, then you put in your other flap. Sometimes it gives you a little bit of trouble getting in there without sort of folding in a weird way. So what I like to do at that point is just kind of push it with my finger and then get that flap to not buckle at the corner. Okay, it looks like we have completed the front and back cover of our accordion book. All right, this is looking really good. Now comes the fun part. So we have our accordion fold, and what we have are some valleys and some mountains. And what we're going to do is we're going to place the left flap of the accordion right between our inside cover sheet and our board. So we're going to place it right in there. And remember, you did put in your outside cover sheet flap on the left. So if you push the paper in, it might undo what you just did. And if that is the case, you just got to try to get it underneath there until it's no longer pushing out your flap. There you have it. And now you can just fold over your accordion and we'll get the back cover in. So again, we have our valleys and mountains, and we're going to put our end sheets. These actually, the sheets on the end that get folded in are called end sheets. And we're going to gently put them in there, trying to get them underneath the flap again. I keep kind of pushing that flap out with the paper. All right, got that back in, and voila. So actually right now, what we have is a finished book in itself. This is called an accordion book. But once we add the spine, it becomes a flutter book. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place the book on the table and we're gonna measure how much space our spine takes up when it's not pressed down and it's just kind of sitting there. And we're gonna go from the inside of our bookbinder's board to the inside of our other bookbinder's board. And it looks like that's 1/2 an inch. If we know that our spine is gonna be 1/2 an inch and then we want a 1-inch flap, that means that we need to cut 2.5 inches for our spine. So I'm just gonna do the 3.5 measurement again. I'm just gonna take a look at my spine when it's closed and kind of estimate based on what it looks like, what that measurement is. And to me, that kind of looks like 1/4 inch. This time I'm gonna do 1 1/4 inch flaps. There we are. I don't know how I just lost track of my measurement there, but I did. What do you think? Any better? So now we have our accordion book. We have our spine. You know, I feel like this light is way too bright. Okay. Oh, that's so much better. Why didn't we work like this from the beginning? Oh, why? This is so much better. And now what I'm doing is I'm just pressing on my book so that the spine is reinforced where it needs to be based on the book being closed and flushed. And so you can do this too with your book. So now we have both of our books complete. 2 accordion books, super pretty. You can make all different kinds, and this makes a very great gift.